Now, as I say, we've got two guests that don't need an introduction, but if I don't introduce them, they'll get very upset. So we'll start, of course, with a man with 22 Test hundreds to his name, 5 Ashes victories in total, the 9th leading run scorer in English Test cricket, and of course, a Bears legend. We're talking about Mr. Ian Bell. And then when we're talking successes, of course, a T20 World Cup winner as the head coach of Sri Lanka. He would have probably have enjoyed Saturday a little bit as the Bears couldn't win, seeing his former team Kent. He won it back with them in 2007, of course. And of course, he was the assistant head coach for England ahead of that World Cup victory. He's now director of cricket here at Warwickshire. It's Paul Farbrace. Richard Porteous with the first question for you then, Ian. This is a simple one. What are your plans for the future? Is it cricket, coaching? If so, what's the aspirations? Or if it's outside of cricket, are there any things you've learned during your career which may help you going forward?
Oh, what am I doing? Well, the plans, coaching is obviously at the top of my list. And that's what I want to do. I've just been finishing off all my qualifications so far. Still got level 4 to do, but so far I've got everything I need to do to get back in the professional game. In that department, obviously, I did a little bit with Birmingham Phoenix through the 100, which was good experience working with some top coaches. I've actually got a bit of a cricket business going as well, part with a few of the guys as well, new equipment, so get a look at that, try and get a few of the young lads here as well.
We plug in the name?
Plug it, Neon, yeah.
Neon, okay, Neon.
Have a look, it's flying, so it's going all right. And playing golf badly. So I've just tried to, I suppose since finishing, just do as much different things as possible. It's been nice actually to go around most of the test matches as well, actually talk a load of rubbish to people and bore people during the day, a little bit of media work. But yeah, it's been good fun. But I think long term, getting back into coaching full time is what I want to do. But it's been a good 12 months so far. You never quite know when you retire how busy you're going to be, and luckily, touch wood, I've been very busy.
We spoke at another one of these types of events the day before the 100 got underway, and it was a very much unknown quantity. Having been in the thick of it, how did you find it? Because it just felt like it gained some real momentum through the competition.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was very much 50-50 when the tournament started, like changes of rules and how it was, and I didn't quite know how to take it. I think by the end of it, I felt like that, the standard of cricket was high, and hopefully what it will over time, certainly on big match days, it's sort of nearly bridging the gap. You're never going to completely get to international cricket, but I think it exposes players to major match days more often. I think, again, I was blown away here with it, and I don't think we want to talk all about the 100, but like a Monday night here against Welsh Fire was sold out, and I've never seen that in my time, which was quite incredible. But I think what I liked about it was the standard of cricket was good. And hopefully the knowledge was spread as well. We had some young players, obviously Chris Benjamin here who played in, a few of the guys were injured, Hosey, but you're getting to speak to other guys, you're getting to spend time with Moeen Ali, Liam Livingstone, Kane Williamson, so passing the knowledge, and that's the one thing that I suppose franchise cricket does. It gets the opportunity to pick other people's brains from around the world, and if you can take that back to your county, you become a better player, and hopefully you keep spreading that knowledge.
Problem with franchise cricket, Paul, is it leads us into our next question from David Whitlock. What are your thoughts on the falling importance of red ball cricket in the county game, and how will this affect the test side?
Look, I think it's pretty simple, really. We talk a lot in this country about the lack of high-quality opening batsmen and the lack of high-quality spin. It's no surprise when we play our county cricket in April and May and September. We need to address that, because if we're serious about being the best test cricket nation in the world and producing more high quality players, we've got to play county cricket, 4-day county cricket on the best pitches we can play on, in the best times of the year. Now the 100 is here to stay, whether we like it or not. The 100's here to stay. I'm not a fan of playing the 100 at the same time as county cricket. I think that would be a pointless exercise. But I do think we've got to find time to play county cricket at better times of the year. I don't mind playing some games in April, but I'd like us to see playing more games in June and July as well, because I think that's a fair test of all players' skills and techniques. We don't want to play on absolute flat wickets where it's 550 for 3 first innings, but we do want to play on wickets that there is something there for everybody. We've been very lucky, and it's easy for me to say this, but we've been very lucky here this year that every single one of our championship games have gone to the last day, and apart from the last game, they've gone to tea time on the last game, and that shows that we're playing on good pitches. Now, we could go down the route and say we'll play on pitches that have got a lot of live grass, the game finishes in 2.5 days, and it's just a 50-50 toss-up between your bowlers, whether you back them against the opposition bowlers. We're saying we want to play on the best pitches, we want to produce players to play for England, we want more Dom Sibleys, Chris Woakes, Ian Bells, Ollie Stones to be playing for us, and it means that our young players coming through are also learning to play on good pitches. It makes it slightly tougher for the bowlers, but that's what it should be. Because if you go to the next level, to Test cricket level, and you're not used to batting for a day and a half, you're not used to batting and facing a lot of balls, as opposed to a lot of county cricketers get hundreds in just over a session and a half. And that's almost a case of, I'll get my runs before the ball gets me. And that can't be the mentality to produce long-term England players.
I was going to say, I mean, I haven't watched a lot of, or every ball this year of Warwickshire, but what I've just watched for the last 2 hours is what Farby's taught, but we need more of that around the country. I thought that was really good first-class cricket today. We had Overton charging in, ball doing enough, which is going to do a bit in the first hour, which is what you want in a pitch, and then the guys getting through that and then putting pressure back on Somerset. So I think today, for me, the more of that kind of cricket you get around the country, the better it is for the Test side going forward.
We are in a really unique position starting today with these final round of games where we've got 4 teams that could potentially walk away with the title. Yeah,
and that's what it should be. You know, and again, it's easy for us to say because we're watching Division 1 cricket. I wouldn't want to be a Division 2 or Division 3 ground because effectively you've got 4 dead games at the end of the season. Division 1 cricket is what it's about. You want the best teams playing against the best. And the fact that 4 teams can win it, 5 teams can finish in the top 2, that's a great advert for county cricket. And the games that we've played, we know that the game at Manchester was a tough, hard pitch to play cricket on. And you had to bat really well to get runs there, didn't you, Benji? It was a tough place to bat there. But it was a good game of 4-day cricket, and it finished in a draw. Now, there wasn't quite enough pace in the pitch at the end for Parkinson to really come into the game and bowl us out, so it finished in a draw. The game here, we know that the first day, and I'm sure most of you were here on that first day, we could have played that in Cannon Hill Park, to be fair, because it was some of the worst batting I've ever seen in county cricket. And the pitch had nothing to do with it, with people reaching wides and steering them to point and cover and getting out. And it was a poor day's cricket. But then the next 3 days were what county cricket was about. It was a really tough battle, and Hampshire played really well, and probably the key moments of the game they won. And we got a little bit bogged down in the second innings. We didn't score quite quickly enough. We put ourselves under a bit of pressure, and that cost us the game ultimately. But we're in a good position now in this game. So this is what you want. You want tough, good championship cricket. You don't want games finishing in 2.5 days on wickets that go all over the place, because nobody learns anything from that. To make sure that the England cricket team are able to put out high quality players in every series around the world, we've got to protect county cricket. We have to protect our 4-day game. The 50 over stuff worked well this year because it gave us a good opportunity to play younger players and give them a good run of games rather than being in and out for games. So it gave us a brilliant opportunity. It gave members a chance to see good young players coming through. We set ourselves a goal of winning 5 out of the 8 RL50 games at the start of the season. That would have got us qualification. We won 4 out of the 8. The game in Cardiff, we look back on and say it was a game we possibly could have won, but you can look at all sorts of things like that. So the 50 over cricket for me, I would move to the start of the season and play it right at the start of the season in a block, and then that allows you to push your championship cricket back a little bit further. You know, the argument that we need to have 50 over cricket played in the middle of the summer to allow England to win World Cups is nonsense, because the best players don't play domestic 50 over cricket. The England team that won the World Cup, most of them wouldn't have played more than 3 or 4 games in the previous 4 years in total. So playing in the domestic 50 over cricket is not going to help England win the World Cup. England winning test matches, we need to have a strong, vibrant 4-day game. So I would move the 50 overs to the beginning, shift the championship back a little bit, and I like the idea of T20 being played in a block, because it makes it much easier with your overseas player that you bring in. So Carlos did really well for us in the group stage, helps us win those last 2 big games at home, but then not available for the quarter-final. To be fair, the replacement in Woakes wasn't a bad swap, was it? But you would like to keep your overseas players throughout that tournament.
Yeah, Carlos and Woakes would have been lovely, wouldn't it?
Very nice.
Then we're talking a different result potentially. So we've touched on Test cricket. Ashes coming up, of course. Jonathan Smith wants to know, what's it like being a pro during the Ashes, with it meaning so much to so many fans, and how did you feel was the best way to deal with the pressure of it?
I certainly didn't overthink it. Do you know what I mean? I think that's the beauty of it. I think actually when I look back on my first Ashes series 2005, I was very unaware of really what actually, not that it meant, because obviously as an England fan growing up, but when you get in there, there is an extra edge to it, and the standard, the media side of things, the scrutiny does go up, you know, on and off the field, so you get followed a little bit more in what you're doing socially. Certainly that group did, but you know, it's just being aware of that. So I learned a lot of lessons in my first Ashes that I think helped me as I gradually went through my career in more Ashes. But again, it's just another game of cricket. When you make a next step up to the international level, you've got to do what got you there in the first place. The reason why you got picked is because you're performing and you're playing to your strengths. So you've got to try and do the same. You obviously got to learn fast when you get to international cricket. If there's any tweaks you have to make and improve. But for me, again, it's just about trusting yourself. And I look back probably at my first one, obviously played against some great players, a great side, is sometimes you can play against the bowler, not the ball. And I think that's my biggest advice to anyone who goes up a level is don't overthink who's you're playing against, play the delivery that's coming down, because even the great bowlers still bowl bad deliveries, they still have bad days. And I think that's something that I learned quite quickly in my career that I didn't do particularly well and got better as it went on. So that's something I would probably do, if I did that again, I would have changed that. But I think as well, it's just a great occasion. I think it's an opportunity, and certainly when you go away from home, you accept that they're desperate to beat you. You know, the whole country gets right behind Australia. You know, KFC is turned green and gold for the whole time you're there. Everything is just completely green and gold. And whether you're on the golf course, in a restaurant, you're going to cop it. I mean, that's just part. But you have to be able to laugh at that as well. You have to be able to embrace that, embrace the challenge. And like I said, and touchwood actually, most of the time out of 7 series, I came out on the right side enough times, which is good.
Did,
but
yeah.
It's a great challenge, great opportunity to put yourself out there.
Talking about that side of it, how you deal with those things. Obviously, you were around at the time that Trotty had his issues while he was out there, and there's so much talk about well-being of players, mental health right now. Obviously, Ben Stokes, the most high-profile, the reluctance to put them in more bubbles and put them at any risk in Pakistan, etc. The mental health side of things, this is for both of you really, is so important to look after these cricketers. What was it like back then? Do you feel that you didn't get the support that you needed?
I wouldn't say, at the time, I didn't feel like we didn't get the support. I think there was still, everything was in place. You know, psychologists are on tour with you all the time. You're aware of it. I think there's a lot more openness now to accepting that can be a part of it. I think a lot of players maybe of the past and even go way back, they wouldn't accept that. Just keep trying, keep going until you nearly break, really. And that's what we probably saw with Trez and with Trotty, was that if there was a bit more of an understanding of everything, they would have probably pulled them out a little bit earlier. But I never felt, looking back, that we weren't looked after in the right way, or we didn't have the right. I just think the way the world's gone now and the acceptance of mental health is a lot more, which is a good thing. But also the reality when you go on tours like that is it's tough. And sport is tough. You have to be resilient mentally. And I look on the tours we went, and certainly the one we won, I think that physically and mentally, that was the best we'd ever been. As a group that I played in, we were just at the right place at the right time, full of confidence, and physically very strong and fit as well. Everyone, no injuries. And the other tours, if you're slightly off physically or technically or confidence, it's a tough tour to go on.
As a coach, when you're away on tour with players and their health, mental health as well, are you a bit like Dad? Is that part of the role of being the coach or assistant coach?
Yeah, I mean, my role wasn't necessarily to talk to Belly about his backswing or how he was hitting the ball. It's about getting to know them. I mean, in the last 2 answers, he's given you a really good indication of what it's like to be a high-performing, highly quality international sportsman. Because he talks about simplifying the game, but then he talks a little bit there about coping with and dealing with the pressure. Now, for those players that are on tours, they all want something from you as a coach. And the only way you're going to help them is to get to know them as people and work out what they want from you. So sometimes a net session isn't to help them technically or tactically, it's actually just to help them feel good. And I think that's the thing for any coach, that whatever group of players you're working with, it's important to get to know them as people. And until you get to know them as people, it's very, very difficult to help them. And as I say, my job was never to talk to Belly or Cookie, Joe Root, Ben Stokes about necessarily telling them how to play the game. A lot of the time it's asking them the right questions. They know the answers, they've done it many times. So you're drawing out the answers from them to help themselves, which is what good coaching is. Telling is one thing, educating and helping them and shaping them is a completely different thing. The mental health thing, I think, is a really interesting challenge, because it's the same for our county players. Last year was a challenge for everybody in this room. We all found it really, really difficult. It doesn't matter what your career is, what your role is, but we had players who are trained all winter, looking forward to a summer, as we all were of county cricket, and at one point it looked as though we weren't going to play any cricket. And then we had a 2-month season. And just looking at the guys sitting there in front of me, their seasons varied last year. You had OHD, absolute star of the show, made the most of it. You had someone like George Garrett, who didn't quite get the opportunities, and that's a tough time for him as a professional cricketer making his way in the game. And unfortunately this year, he's got that resilience that Belly's talked about, that he's actually able to really take his game forward. So it doesn't matter what walk of life you're in, it doesn't matter what occupation you're in, we all found that tough. And I think the one thing that we have seen is that people are far more open to talk about mental health issues, and there is more support there, and we are all more sympathetic and empathetic towards people having tough times. But again, that comes back to, do you know the people that you're with? Do you understand what they need from you? And whether that's sat in the crowd next to somebody that you've sat next to for many, many years watching the game, you get to understand them. And when you ask them if they're okay and they say I'm okay, you know from the response and how they say it, whether they really are okay. And it's just about, I think, all of us just taking a bit more time to understand other people, isn't it?
I think that comes down to not just the coaches but the players as well, because I look back on some of those, and maybe as players we didn't check in with our mates as much, but I think the hardest thing when you're on an England tour now, and speak to some of the older players when you used to share, it was a lot easier when you were sharing rooms to find out if someone was okay. Everyone gets single rooms now, so as soon as you finish training, especially in a bubble, you shut your door, you go and you get your room service. It's very hard to know how people are thinking inside, and a lot of times, sometimes, I always found even the subcontinent sometimes hard to tour, because if it's going badly and it's a hard place to tour, the escape isn't just walking down the shops or going for a game of golf. You literally are back in your room, and then you spend a lot of time overthinking the game, and that's where the mental side does come in. And I think with the bubble stuff, and like I said, single rooms, actually is quite hard to know how your mates are doing. So I think it's up to the players, your teammates, as much as the coaches, to understand how your mates are doing as well and checking in.
Excellent, thank you. That's really good insight from you two. We've done a few events, and we talked throughout the season about the new head coach. And this question really ties in from that, from Rob Baldock. What can we learn from this season's performances, and how are we looking to improve for next year? How would you compare performances of the three teams to pre-season expectations? You've already talked about the 50 over side. You wanted to win 5, you won 4. How about the rest of the setup, and how's the coach done?
But I think, and we'll keep this between us, but I think the coach is doing all right. I think he's done okay. And I think our 2 goals, so a goal in the 50 over cricket, as I said, was to qualify and was to win 5 out of 8. The T20 was to win 8 of the 14. We won 7, and we had 1 washed out here against Lancashire. And I think we would all say that in many ways that quarter-final probably showed us where we need to improve. We lost 5 of our top 6 wickets to non-spinning spinners. Which means that perhaps we're trying to play this new brave T20 game, and we haven't quite committed to it yet, and we need to be a little bit braver. Now that doesn't mean you just go out and slog every ball and say that's how I play, because that's a cop-out. But I think we just need to be a little bit smarter in our T20. And our goal next year will be to make sure that we aim for a home quarter-final, which means that we've won 2 more group games in the stage to get us to that stage. But we know we've got a bit of work to do in rotating the strike, taking pressure off ourselves, but also making sure we score more boundaries. Our boundary count this year was quite low, and that's something we've got to work a little bit harder on to make sure we get our boundary count up without just slogging. In Championship cricket, our goal was to be in this top division for September. That was our goal, and it was to win. So that was our goal. We've achieved that. The one thing that I've said before at these forums and others with members is that County Championship is, for me, is the absolute pinnacle. That's what we want to win. That's where we test ourselves, because it's over the whole season. Of course, we want to be here for finals day. We don't want to be here watching other teams playing at our venue on finals day. We want to be here for that. We know that we've achieved 2 of our goals for this year. Next year, our goal should be to be in the top 3 of this division if we go into the same format next year. We want to win the County Championship by 2024. That's got to be our goal. And this week, really is what this club is about. We should be competing in these big games at the end of the season. We don't want to be where our season's finished by mid-August. So I think the simple answer to the question is the coach is doing a good job, the coaching team are doing a good job, and the players are definitely improving. They're working hard and we've made good progress this year. But we know we've still got a lot of work to do. As I say, T20, we've identified some key areas. Championship cricket, ideally we'd like to keep 1 or 2 of our key bowlers fitter for longer, but it's a tough job. It's a tough ask keeping your bowlers on the field. And as I say, the hard work, the effort, the commitment to the cause is fantastic. And I think we're making really, really good progress. The one thing that Robbo instilled upon all of us when he came in was he talked about when we win, not if we win. But we are definitely making strides and heading in the right direction.
The follow-on from that, because there was a question from Peter about the 5-year plan. You've just alluded to winning the county championship by 2024. Another one from Kerry Davis was, if the Bears could recruit any player in the world to improve our Red Bull side next year, who would it be and why? And what is our recruitment strategy for our overseas players?
Look, I'll start with the second bit. Our strategy for recruiting overseas players. At the start of the year, we'd signed Pujara to play the first 8 games of the season. And for the first time in 7 years, he got picked in the IPL. And we then went for Peter Milan. Now, Peter Milan, unbelievable professional, worked extremely hard, tried very hard. It just didn't work for him. It was tough. It was seriously tough for him. Carlos, in terms of T20, I think we'd all agree was a major success. Not only, one of the reasons we brought Carlos in was not because just of his runs and wickets, but it was his personality and his way of playing T20 and his experience that he brought of expecting to win. He'd won in the Big Bash in the winter. 1 or 2 of our short-term signings that we brought in have been very last minute. And I take full responsibility for that. 1 or 2 of them haven't worked out as well as we'd like them to have done. So our recruitment, we have already started looking at what we need for next year. We're not looking to bring any more domestic players in. Alex Davis is coming in and will add nicely. We've obviously signed Benji, who has absolutely flown out the traps, potentially in your view from nowhere, but Ian Westwood's had a good eye on him for the last 18 months, so it's no surprise. And we think that with the emergence of Dan Mosley, Rob Yates, we have now got the semblance of a very, very good batting group, and we just need to keep pushing them forward. Our bowling group, we're in a very good place. As I said, we just need to keep them fit. I think in terms of our overseas approach next year, it may be, depending on where Brez is at, that we may need to be looking at some sort of bowling all-rounder to help us with the first half of Championship cricket. So, look, where I talked about we can improve and get better in terms of the team, I know that I can keep improving and doing better in terms of our recruitment of overseas players, because I think it's a bit of a mixed bag this year. I'm not going to try and con you otherwise.
Would I be remiss, ladies and gentlemen, to say that we'd like to see Carlos back for the T20? Would that be a positive move? Can we get him back? Can that happen? Can that happen,
Excellent.
boss?
It might happen, yeah.
Yeah?
It might do.
Just the character as well.
Yeah, I thought there might have been a few more interested, but maybe.
Catherine Cotton's got a question for you, Ian. What would be the best piece of advice you could go back and give yourself as a teenager to help your career in cricket?
Oh. Good question. I don't know where the game's going now. Probably get in the gym a bit more, get a bit bigger and hit a few more sixes maybe, I don't know.
That's the way forward, isn't it? Have you got any advice you'd give yourself from when you were a teenager now that could have set you at a better...
Yeah, it's probably not appropriate in this forum, though. The great thing for people like Belly and I, and Belly's talking about, he wants to, get into coaching, he's into it, he wants to get into it. I think the great thing about coaching and helping players develop is that you do learn from your own time. Now, I played at being a professional career, I didn't work at it, I played at it. And I was lucky that back in the time when I played, staffs were slightly bigger, I stayed on there for slightly longer, but it has taught me an awful lot, and it's taught me a lot about helping young players. And you can't say to players, don't do this or do that. But as I say, it's about finding out from them. The one thing that you do, having experienced lots of different coaches, and I'm sure Belly will be the same, you pick good stuff from coaches, you pick stuff you think, actually, I'll use that, and you pick other stuff where you think, I definitely won't be using that. And coaching players has changed. You know, when I started, you know, you had one coach who just stood and shouted at you and you were scared of them. Nowadays, it can't be like that. You know, you've got to get to know them better and spend more time with them. So I think it's an ever-evolving thing. You know, I'm 54, I'm still learning. You know, I've just admitted I've still got areas I've got to get better at. And that's really important, because I think it's the sort of game, cricket, that if ever you feel you've cracked it and you've got the better of it, then it's probably the time to walk away and do something else.
You mentioned Alex Davis. John Coyle wants to know, where do you see him fitting in the side next year? There's a big question.
It is a good question. I mean, look, we've signed him because he is a winner. He wants to win. He wants to play for England. He sees his opportunity of coming here and playing for us, really kicking him on to play for England. That was our selling point to him. We want him to play for England. We want all of our players to have the aspirations to play for England and to kick on and be the best they can be. And that's why at the start of last season, as I said, when we had Sibley, Wokes, Stone around the team, it was fantastic to see players chatting to them about their games. How am I going to get better? How am I going to improve? How am I going to take my game to the next level? And to have someone like Alex joining us, who quite clearly wants to play for England, he's very ambitious. Danny Briggs, that was a selling point to him. Come and play for us. Play all forms of the game. We want you, and we think you can still play for England again. And that has to be our aspiration. That has to be our goal. You know, we don't want players settling for being, okay, I'm doing okay. We want people to be the best they can be. So I think Davis is a great signing. Where he fits in, that's Robbo Rhodes' problem, that's not mine.
I like it, passing the buck. Marina Dorward has said, Ian, what would you consider to be the highest and lowest points of your career, and what is your proudest moment?
Plenty of low ones.
I did prime you with some of these. I thought you'd have thought about this one.
No, I think seeing the guys get this close now and obviously right in the hunt for a trophy, I think, you know, winning trophies for Warwickshire is what I wanted to do. I grew up in an era of the 90s where that's what we did. You know, we were the best team in the country, and that's the reason. I remember running on at Lords when we won the NatWest final against Sussex. That was the moment I wanted to play for Warwickshire. I was 10 years old. So I think any time I got to Lords, and I think I scored, that would probably my best day for Warwickshire, was winning as captain and scoring 100 on a Lords final, because that's the dream I had. It wasn't necessarily about playing for England as such. The highlight, obviously, again, any of the Ashes. Probably, again, winning in Australia. I think anyone who knows, obviously, again, with what's coming up, how tough that is and how they enjoy beating us. So winning out there was the pinnacle. I think lowest moment, do you know what? Probably getting relegated with Warwickshire would be one. Because, again, exactly what Fabi said. I mean, we all want to win. We're desperate, and that hurts, and that stung, and it took a while to get that out of the system and then obviously get Warwickshire back to where it was. And I know Fabi mentioned for me that he wanted another year out of me, and I knew, you know, I can't lie to myself, I couldn't lie to Fabi or anyone, it was the right time to move on. And I think when you come into the team, or when you leave the team, should I say, you want to try and leave it in a better place. So for me, it gives me a lot of satisfaction to know we're trying for a trophy the year after I've left, because I made the right decision. Do you know what I mean? I didn't make it for anyone else, I tried to make it for everyone. So actually, even though there were some tough days, I think that certainly towards the end, I know I made the right choice for the club and myself.
Brilliant, perfect answer, and a perfect answer to end. I hope you show your appreciation today for our two guests, who I think have been candid, honest, open and informative as ever. I would have liked more time to get some of Paul's stories, particularly about Murali, because there's some very good ones, but maybe we'll do that next time. Ladies and gentlemen, show your appreciation for Ian Bell and Paul Farbrace.